and welcome to this episode of AA Connect, the official podcast of the Automobile Association of South Africa, where we discuss a range of issues around mobility and safety and security. We hope that these podcasts are informative to you and provide you with information that you can use in your daily lives. If you want to catch us on any of the social media platforms, you can do that. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you want to get our main site, it's www.aa.co.za. And this podcast is available on a range of platforms, and those platforms are also listed on the website and on our social media platforms. Very happy to be discussing a very important topic today, and joining me in the AA Connect studio is our CEO, Willem Groenewald. Welcome, Willem. Thank you for being here and for making the time available. And perhaps more importantly, we have Suzette du Preez, who's joining us via Zoom from Knysna, where she tells us it's been a beautiful day today. So we're all obviously very jealous up here in Gauteng that Suzette is based down in Knysna, beautiful part of the country. But Suzette, let's start with you and just get a sense of why we have you on the show today. You are the owner and founder of a company called TruCare Well-Aged Solutions. Now, I know a little bit about you. I've had some personal experience with TruCare, but for those who don't, just give us an idea of what it is you do.
Leighton, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share our passion with you. It's really a pleasure doing so. We positioned ourselves in the market, providing services to older adults that require care, be it in the privacy of their home or in a more structured setup like a retirement estate. So we are the service provider on a handful of retirement estates that we choose carefully. And also we provide home-based care to the average older person living in a suburb, in an ordinary street, anywhere in the Gauteng area. And we also service KwaZulu-Natal in terms of estates, but open to the entire of South Africa when it comes to estate management.
Looking after older people, older adults, is something that a lot of us don't think about until it's time to actually do something like that. But it's something that should be part of planning way before that requirement arises, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Leighton. You are right there. People have financial plans, extensive financial plans for the day they retire, but they neglect or just don't think about planning what will happen in their later life in terms of staying independent. So it's a very important topic, yes.
And you're not even bringing into this conversation things, again, you don't consider things like dementia or Alzheimer's, or you becoming so frail that you can't walk, that you're going to require some assistance. And, even if you've been active throughout your life, something may happen when you are 75 or 80 or whatever, and it makes you immobile, so you can't move. And it's very important that you consider this type of thing when you do your retirement planning.
Yeah, no, it's vital. And, if it's a message that TruCare can spread, it's the message of making sure that as you get older, you have a plan in place to maintain your independence. And I think that really lacks in the market currently. People don't. I think we so accept that we are independent, that we never think that we may lose that independence. And therefore we don't plan for it. So once it's on our doorstep, it's almost too late that we then want to take a couple of steps back and now try and get something in place.
And a lot of the times that type of responsibility falls on the shoulders of the children. So you may have children who are, obviously adults themselves, but looking after you becomes their responsibility.
Yeah, sadly enough, you get to a stage in life where when you just look at the circle of life, we start off fully dependent on our parents, and mostly we end our lives very dependent on our children. That is how the circle goes. So it's very difficult to make that transition, because at some stage in this relationship between child and parent, the roles actually change. Where the child takes over the role. The child does not become the parent, but the child takes over the role of the parent. And that's very difficult and should really be handled with caution and respect, because the one thing that older people don't want to lose is their dignity and independence. And so often they lose their independence and they fight fiercely for it. So, but yeah, you are quite right. The child becomes or takes the role of the parent at one stage.
And I think that what you've mentioned now is a very critical aspect of why we have Willem with us in studio today. And that is that, as you get older, you want to live with dignity and you don't want to lose that independence. So you end up in the situation, whether you are in an estate or whether you are still living in a specific suburb, in a flat, in a house, wherever, you as an elderly married couple may be living alone. You may be frail, but you're still living alone, or you're living on your own as either a widow or a widower. You're living in a retirement village, but you're still on your own, but you require some investment from the community around you, because one of the things that may happen is you may fall, you may hurt yourself, there may be a security threat that's with you, and you don't have any access to anybody that can help you, and that's a real issue. Right? I mean, that happens all the time. And I, speak from experience, not only as a child, but, having been involved in community programs where, elderly people who live in estates fall off the bed and they lie on the floor for hours without anybody knowing it.
Yeah, Leighton, absolutely. There's a gap in the market that we have identified, I almost want to say years back, because we get people that will contact us regarding home care services, and then they are not really at the stage where we feel it's justifiable to place a carer with them. We a stage where we feel that they can still live independent, but they do need support.
Yes.
And the form of support, becomes very important, because it must be reliable. It must be effective, and it must really fill that specific gap. So there is definitely a need for something.
That's a beautiful segue into you, Willem. Support. And what type of support? We are the Automobile Association, but we have a product that we've developed. It's called Rem-i Amica. And this is a very nifty and unique product. It's locally made, locally produced. We can have it here. It's locally supported. But it provides that level of support, correct?
Oh, Leighton, thanks very much. Suzette, privileged to share the platform with you today. Certainly for me, I'm heading to late 40s, and sadly my parents passed in 2015. And I vividly recall those last years as to how that went. They had a very, very long marriage. My father unfortunately passed before my mother, and in those last days, especially with my mother, him being the breadwinner and her being there to support him through the years, not having worked, was completely exposed in the latter part of her days, not having him there taking care of everything. And she was really at a loss to be independent. And it's the kind of thing that certainly in that age bracket, they didn't provide to see what the impact would be. And it's quite devastating to see. And like you said, Leighton, it's exactly what happens. And that transition happens where that circle of life then just flips from parent to child, and we ended up having to make sure that they're okay. So it's quite interesting to have this discussion and listening carefully to what you're saying. So what we've developed is really a virtualized mechanism to create a different form of community. So especially for older adults, whether they widowed or widower, and they land up on their own. Perhaps they could still live in their own, and perhaps the kids are making sure that they're fine, and they provide a home to them, A or B, perhaps they're in an old age home or whatever the case might be. We've developed a product that is GSM based. It doesn't function on your telephone. It's free from a phone. It works on a data SIM, and on that device, you can, at the convenience of the press of a button, hail for services, whether it is armed response when you feel threatened, when there's an intruder in your house, perhaps not even in your house, perhaps the person is traveling, perhaps the person is in a shopping center on the side of the road, perhaps has been traveling in a vehicle and the vehicle broke down. The button could be activated, and that would activate a network of 180 security service providers nationwide, and the closest responder to that event would come to that person's rescue. Secondly, the button could be activated as a medical response button. It also has an accelerometer. In the event that the person falls and there's impact on the device, it would cue an alarm, and alert would go through to our call center. And then thirdly, another number gets loaded, so perhaps the older person has a child's number on there, or somebody that cares for them. That number would be alerted. So
an SMS would go through to that number.
The SMS would go directly to that number. So if you could see this device, I'll hold it in the palm of my hand. It's really small. It could be affixed on a key. It could be a keyring. It could be put on a lanyard to put around the person's neck. It could also go into this pouch to put around the person's arm when they go for a morning walk, perhaps. Some of them are still very agile and active, whether they go for a jog or a walk or whatever the case might be. This device could be put into the pouch, and at any point in time when they need assistance, they could press the button.
Sorry, before you carry on, for those of you who are not watching this podcast but are listening to it, the device that I have in front of me is a very small device. It fits on a key ring. It's got an AA logo in the middle of it, and as Willem said, it's about half the size of your palm. It's a very lightweight device. It's got two buttons on the side. Obviously, if you need to communicate, you can push one of them, but the main button on the front is something that you would push in the event that you required help. And just to go back to the 180 service providers, Willem, if you were in a big metropolitan area, the closest the closest service provider to your location, would come out and be of assistance to you, and they would obviously assess the situation and determine whether there's a security need or a medical need, and based on that, the situation would then develop, right?
Yes, Layson, it's very important to note that the Automobile Association has been around for 91 years. We're a non-profit organization, and we do all these things for the benefit of our members. Now, in this particular instance, it's not for members only. Non-members could participate in the service, and it's really to create a community of safety and involvement, and to provide different mechanisms to come to the rescue. The AA call center sits at the back of this button, so when that button gets activated, the AA will give you a call and check if you're okay, and the AA would also facilitate the dispatch of these response officers, whether it be medical or whether it be armed response. And of course, if an SMS goes through to a loved one, when that button gets pressed, it's certainly no toy. You would know that that person is in distress. Also, in terms of the device itself, you can locate that.
It's got a fail safe. So if you push it for a second, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be almost like a missed call type thing. So you push it down for 2 or 3 seconds, and then the alert goes through. So that's the fail safe that's on it, right? So when you get that message that this is a genuine emergency.
Correct. Yes. Yes. Also, in terms of how it works, as long as it's charged and active and there's data on the data SIM in that device, you can locate the device. If you have international roaming, this device could be located anywhere in the world. As long as you have power and signal, data, international roaming for a local device, you could, if you grant permission to people to locate that device, you would grant access to make sure that your privacy is protected, and that device could be tracked anywhere at any time. It will also tell you at what speed and velocity the unit is traveling on a live GPS grid. So it's a very, very powerful GPS locate-based services device.
And Suzette, that functionality has a specific application for people with certain conditions, right? I mean, an Alzheimer's patient who goes wandering, this could be very useful in that situation.
Yeah, most definitely. I just want to take one step back just to to say to Willem, that's absolutely the product that fills that gap that I referred to, just because of its functionality. Because when you look typically at panic buttons that individuals get on a retirement estate, it's a panic button that works in their unit only. So the moment they step outside of that unit to visit a friend, it can't locate them anymore. The panic does not work anymore. This device, it's international roaming, so wherever you go, it can locate you and you can press it and you can get assistance. So it really excites me. And I was thinking, when it comes to people with Alzheimer's and dementia, in fact, any of the many different forms of dementia, if you pop it in their handbag, they usually have a favorite handbag or something that they carry with them. If you pop it in there and it's got GPS location, it really, really excites me. We get people that we don't render services to, and they would give us a call and say, what shall I do? My parent got lost and we got your details on the internet. And then it's a parent with Alzheimer's or dementia that roamed and they don't know where the parent is. It's really, the product excites me.
And I mean, this could, not to be too dramatic, but it could be the difference between life and death.
Oh, for sure. You can just think for yourself. If you have an older adult that has a fall, it's someone that's again in that gap that does not require a carer to be there full time. Perhaps they have a carer, let's say only for 6 hours a day or 9 hours a day. There's still 18 hours of the day left. They are independent enough, but who's going to respond in case of a real emergency? A device like that is then really a lifesaver.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
And we're not talking, I mean, this conversation is about older adults, but we're not talking to those older adults. We're talking to their families. And we're saying to those families, if you have an older adult in your life, or you've got older adults in your life, and they may need looking after going forward, this is something that you should consider as a safety device for them. It's going to help you as much as it's going to help them.
Definitely. There's one thing that all children want for their parents, or for themselves rather, and that is peace of mind.
Sure.
And that little device really gives a lot of that. If there's not a carer full time, or it's not yet at the stage where they require a carer full time, that's just a beautiful device to fill the gap.
Willem, I said just now it's a locally produced product. I meant to say it's a locally supported product. Perhaps you can just give us a bit more on that, because I think that's a very important factor here.
Very, very much so. I need to add a bit of humor with my personal experience. I was much younger than I am now. I was rushing off to an evening event, and I got out the shower, and as I stepped out the shower, I slipped as I stepped through, and I dislocated my knee.
Oy.
And I was lying there, undressed, very vulnerable, not being able to move, breaking out in a cold sweat. And in instances like that, you don't think of who to phone or what to do. You're in distress. You're panicking. You can't move. You are sore. What do you do? A device like this doesn't have to make you think. You hit the button, and there's somebody that could come and help you. And again, hitting this button, there's a problem. To add to what you're saying, although the device is a imported device from a hardware perspective, what we create is an Internet of Things environment within the AA. We call it aa-connected.me. So we're building a software platform that can handle up to 700 of these type devices. I'm not saying we can put 1 million of these devices on our grid or more, but we could have this device and another 700 different devices plugged into our network, our infrastructure, software support network. And I think it's very important because this is not unique in the market. There are many panic devices out there supported by different platforms, but we are supporting that platform, and we've got a proudly South African support team supporting this particular device and software, and we can continue to develop and enhance functionality on this. So we could ring fence communities, for example. So if Suzette says to us, for example, she has a specific requirement, perhaps in the event of a hijack, you wouldn't want somebody to be calling into this device to have a conversation with you.
No.
Because the hijacker would want to see who's speaking to you, and they'll say, but hold on, this is a problem for them. So we could set it to have a listen-in function only. So when you activate it, obviously we don't want it for nefarious activities where somebody dials into this where you're recording conversations. We're not promoting or supporting those activities. It's not what we're saying. What we are saying is this device could be activated if you're in distress. The conversation could be heard by, typically, it would be a similar service to what the 911 service has in the US. And it could be designed to whatever your circumstances are. So the settings could be adjusted. It's not that we give it to you and we forget about you. It really is a fantastic solution.
What I really like about the product is that when you activate it, an SMS goes to Suzette and an SMS goes to Willem. You know, my kids, they get that, and I get a message on my phone that says, hey, you know, mom has activated the panic button, or, you know, and she needs help. And that alerts me to it as well. So I don't have to have the actual device, but I'm aware of the fact that there's an emergency.
Leighton, if you, for example, if you allow me onto your platform, you hit the button, the minute that happens, I'm going to take that. If I'm too far away, I'm going to share that immediately with our colleagues, our circle of friends, to say, Leighton's in trouble. Here's the location of the device. Share it on WhatsApp, and see if we can assist whoever that is. Because we will know, as emergency services en route there, whatever the case might be, it wouldn't only be them. It would literally be having somebody shadow with you in the event, or the unlikely event, or heaven forbid there's a vehicle accident. The minute this thing sustains impact, you would know an alert would be triggered, and wherever you are, your loved one, the one closest to you, would get an alert to say there's a problem here. Yeah. So if they dial into the device and there's no response, they would know to send a respondent.
Yeah. And Suzette, I mean, I guess, you know, we're having this conversation, and you know, I don't want to give the impression that what we're talking about is pie in the sky. These emergencies with older adults happen all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, when I say daily phone calls, I literally mean that our company handles daily phone calls of children making contact with us because their parent had a fall last night, or they are at work and their parent requires assistance now, not realizing that we are not that emergency service, but reaching out to get some form of support because there is nothing else available. Yeah. So once again, you know, really a product that I can definitely suggest to clients in the future. We've been contacted over time by a couple of similar products, companies that offer a similar product, but not a comprehensive product that has all in this little one device. There's always the one or the other aspect lacking, which in your product, I must admit, is not the case. And therefore, it would only be a pleasure and a joy to actually share this product in the market, because I can really see the value of it. Absolutely.
No, that's perfect. And it needs to be reliable, Willem, and that's something that we, as the AA, are very much attentive upon. I mean, we're not going to put a product in the market and say, okay, here it is, and not having tested it ourselves and making sure that the thing actually works properly.
Absolutely, Leighton. So we've got technology teams doing this all-time, full-time. Our IT department has a dedicated staff complement testing these devices. Yeah. And our developers obviously does it as well. And what I wanted to remark on as well, it's really fascinating to me as you look at this, if I could call it life stages, where typically our older members are the ones buying roadside assistance for their children. Yeah. And how interesting would this be that the children now would be the ones buying this product for their parents? Yeah,
it would be great. Because I think parents, and Suzette, you touched on this as well, parents really want the best for their kids. They want the best. They want their kids to be looked after and to be safe. And that's why we find, as the AA, a lot of parents buying AA membership for their younger children or their children who are just becoming drivers and entering into that mobility sector. And it's now time, I think, that, you know, as we speak to the children, and Suzette mentioned baby boomers. I'm Generation X because I'm still quite young, but I mean, obviously, you know, it's time for those people to start thinking about, what do we do for mom and dad in 5 or 10 years' time? But we've got to start thinking about it now, right? Suzette, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, please say.
Nathan, if I can add one thing.
Please.
Generally, people look for answers too late. You should get it for your parent now, so that your parent get into the habit of carrying this device when they need it. It's at hand.
Good point. Very good point. Thank you very much. And on that note, Suzette, I'll say thank you so much for your time and for your expert inputs. I really do appreciate it. And Willem, thank you very much for your time. I think this has been very informative, and it's been very good to speak about the Rem-i Amica product, the remote friend, which is what Rem-i Amica stands for, your remote friend. And certainly, you know, I think it is a product that a lot of people are going to look at and say that this is the type of thing that we need to give to mom and dad going forward.
Leighton, just in closing from me, what we really want to achieve from the AA, we want the AA brand to be a way of life. It shouldn't be something that you're thinking of that you should get. For example, if you're going to get into a motor vehicle and drive somewhere, you wouldn't leave home without your driver's license. The AA's products is the same. You know, the comfort of being in a vehicle and traveling, we quickly forget that it's a moving object. It is riddled with danger, whether it's potholes or oncoming traffic or people transgressing laws, drunk drivers, whatever the case might be. It should really not even be a question whether you need the AA in your life. It should be every time you renew your license, the AA membership should be renewed, incorporating all the products to keep you safe, to keep you mobile, to have medical response at hand and keep you secure. That's really what we're saying. It should be embedded in a way of life. And this is really our theme that I'd like to close with.
But that's, I think, also just tying in with what Suzette said, don't think about it. It should be the type of thing that you put in the handbag right now and get people buying. Suzette, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. This has been the last episode of AA Connect, the podcast brought to you by the Automobile Association of South Africa. As always, we are available on all social media platforms. And Suzette, before I go, I mean, we've got social media platforms. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're on all of those platforms. TruCare has a Facebook page as well. And perhaps you just want to give TruCare's web address before we sign off.
TruCare's web address is very simple. It's www.trucare, you spell the true without the E, .co.za.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suzette. Appreciate your time. And thank you, Willem. Appreciate your time. Until next time, goodbye.